Hi everyone, we are back today and I am going to start working on getting that radiator replaced in the Coronet. And I am in my storage shed today, not my uncle's garage or my stepdad's or even my garage, but actually in my storage shed, as you can see by all the extra car parts that I've got sitting over there. Okay, so let me show you what I'm going to do on this. So I've got to remove the battery in the battery box, because I'm going to need to make some adjustments there. Got to remove the radiator, got to remove the horn over there, and the overflow bucket over there as well. Also going to do a delete on that fan, so I'll loosen up the belts, pull the fan off, and just put some bolts in there to hold the pulley on. I am, however, going to save you guys the time warp on me removing that. I'm just going to go ahead and remove it, and then I'll get back to you when I've got that out. Okay, well, I got everything out. Not everything came out smooth as I thought. So the battery box down here, which I have to remove because I've got to cut a little bit out of it so that it'll clear the radiator. And it was pretty rusty in there. In fact, there's a bracket that comes from down here somewhere up to here to support the battery box. And it was this bolt actually broke off when I took it off, so it was in bad shape. The battery box itself is also pretty rusty. I can kind of maybe show you over here. So I got all the parts in it right now, but you can kind of see how rusty all this stuff is. So I'm gonna have to probably polish that up a little bit, put a little rust treatment on it, and get that fixed. But we're not there yet. So okay, so the other thing is I got the fan deleted and got bolts in the pulley. Let's see what else. Got everything off over there on the other side. I've also been working on, as you can see, I do have the mounts for the new radiator in here already. I got to working on that and just kind of went with it off camera. So it was a little bit tricky on that. So the radiator right there is much bigger than the old one that came out of it. So up and down, it clears this middle part right here by about 1/8 of an inch. On the top, the reservoirs of the radiator stick up above this about 1/4 of an inch, which does give enough room for the radiator cap to clear the hood. Radiator cap actually sits about in here somewhere. So there was just barely enough room up and down for all that to work. In and out, I have lots of room between the bolts on the pulley and back here. There's like a good 3/4 of a gap. So I utilized that space, and on my mounts, I put a little bit of spacing on the mounts here to pull it out. Left and right, going back and forth this way, I needed to clear this hole here, so I had to push the radiator further that way. And the only issue I had with that was I had to notch this out a little bit right here so that the shroud of the radiator will clear. See this bolt here, I only have one nut on it. That's because this part sticks out a little bit further than the rest of it does. And the reason why is because if you look down here, you can see that this is bent here. It's bent down there. That is completely just ripped apart, and all the way along, that whole thing is just bent. If we go inside the wheel well, you can see that spot right there on the frame is bent and that bolt is kind of tweaked. So somewhere along the lines, I believe this car has been hit. Another indicator of it is the color here on the fender. You can see that the original color of the car was this red, and this is not red in here. If we go look at the other fender, you can see that this red matches this. So I think this fender has been changed at one point, which all of that makes sense, because that's why the adjustments for the suspension would not come into play. I think this whole entire side here is pushed that way just a little tiny bit. I can hook a tractor up to this side, and I can hook a tractor up to this side and just simply drive in opposite directions, and yeah, it's gonna move. But in order to do that, the engine has to be unbolted. The K-frame down there, yeah, I think it's called a K-frame on these. I'm not sure, that's what Chrysler used to call them in the 80s and 90s. But I need to unbolt that K-frame and then pull it. I take the fenders and the nose and everything off and pull that apart. So, but not going to do that right now. For now, I think we're ready to go ahead and slide this radiator in here. Alright, let me show you what we ended up with. So, on this side right down here, the battery box attaches right here, so you can see we're very close. Maybe I'll turn you around. You kind of see we're really close to that battery bolt, and that box is actually going to hit right in here. So I'm going to have to notch that box out to cover that. Got plenty of room. Got plenty of room on all the pulleys and everything. In fact, there's, I mean, tons of room in there. Over here, here's where I had to notch that out, and you can see it's still barely cleared there. But anyway, plenty of room around it. We got a big gap in here, but that's okay. I'm going to put the overflow hose down in through there, and that's going to take up most of that space, so I think we'll be alright. In the front here, we are blocking a few of the coils on here, but there is plenty of space in there for air to flow this direction, so I think we'll be okay there. Here, it's actually perfect. It's right in line, so I think we'll be okay there. And the fans are going to pull a lot more air through there than anyway, so when it's sitting still, it should be fine. Moving down the road, there should be enough air flowing through there that'll get over there to keep this thing cool. So anyway, I'm well happy with it. I was not sure if this core support was going to support this or not, but it does, so I think we're in good shape. So we'll just continue on here. Next is going to be the reservoir, and I made some brackets here for the reservoir. So I'm gonna just simply mount that. Just drill some holes and just mount that right in there like that. I think it'll sit fine. Horn, we got plenty of room out here, so I'll just mount the horn out here. Extend that green wire right there. Well, the nut's on the floor now. Technically, I guess it's on the ground because I don't have a floor in here. Found it. Alright, well, I did not plan ahead enough. Basically, the battery box is not a problem. I can cut that down and I can get it fit in there. The problem is that the battery then won't fit properly in the battery box. I could move that radiator over 1 inch, and then the battery box would go in there. I just have to trim it a little bit. But then I would have a problem with not having enough room for this. Because if you look down in here, that is actually touching the bottom of the body. But what I'm thinking here is I'll cut the battery box down and get this battery box in there, and then maybe I can just add a little bit to the battery box going out that way and just slide the battery over some. It doesn't take much. First though, I'm going to replace this hose. So I have a new hose right here. You can see it's got that fitting in there. Really doesn't belong, and I didn't really have good access to it before, but I do now. So I think I'm going to do that, because if I get this battery box back in here, then it like partially blocks my access. So I think I'm going to do that first. I'll cut the battery box down, and I'll get back with you guys. Alright, quick update here. So I've been working on the battery box, and as you can see, I've got all the rust polished off of it, so it's nice and shiny. I can't quite get into all the little corners and everything, but I got it pretty good here. So I should be able to put some rust treatment on that, and then let that dry, and then prime it, and it should look a lot better. I'll also paint it black too. All right, let's give this a try here. It is awful tight down in here, but there are the two holes. There's a hole, mounting hole there, and a mounting hole back here. That one is awful tight, but I think it'll go. And then there's one more hole down there, but you can see this is going to clear. I need to get this metal finish welded in there, and then I'll be able to pound that out on top a little bit so that it completely clears that radiator. But other than that one spot right there, I think it's as tight as I can make it and still clear. Battery is not gonna fit between here and that other edge, so I'm gonna have to just move the battery that way and do the best I can with it. But anyway, looks like this is gonna work. Well, I went to do this power steering hose, like I said, and I got this side on there. That was no problem. The new hose here was 3/8 hose, which was made for this. But when I went to put it on the steering gear box, this is what I ran into. There is no way that hose is going to go over that fitting. So I went ahead and did a little research, and what I found out is that the 65 and 66 cornets have this 5/8 fitting on their gearboxes, and all of the newer ones have a different one on there. They have a 3/8, and of course the new line here is 3/8, and the pump is 3/8. So I got to checking on all the pumps that I had, and every single pump I had this 3/8 return hose, and any new pump that I could buy also had a 3/8 return hose. And so what I did is I got to looking around, and I found a fitting that has the 3/8 hose on it. Now this is not just the fitting, this is actually a spring-loaded part that keeps pressure inside the gearbox. So I don't know if that's going to cause any problems, but at least I'll be able to get the hose on this one, and it'll be correct. So I'm going to go ahead and take off those two bolts and get that on there, and then I should be able to get this hose on. So I'll get back with you when that's done. Alright, well, that wasn't too bad actually. I got the new fitting on there, and I got the hose cut to length. So now we should just be able to get this hose right on here. Ooh, it is stiff. Alright, get my clamp situated here. You know, it's really hard to work and hold this camera at the same time, guys. Which is why I try to just set a camera up on the tripod, so maybe I can catch the good fun stuff, but save you all the boring stuff. Anyway, alright, so I'm gonna have to get a screwdriver in there. I'm gonna have to set the camera down, get a screwdriver in there, and tighten that up. So I think we're gonna be. I think it's gonna work fine. I think my length is about right. Oh, by the way, this power steering pump. While I was doing my research, I found that there's two different kinds of power steering pumps. There's the small block and a big block power steering pump. The small block actually comes up, or the return line on it comes up 90 degrees, just like this one does. And the big block actually comes out straight, like this. So this hose, if this was a pump for a big block, this hose would come out here and just curl right around here nicely and come back. But this is for a small block engine, but it doesn't matter. The rest of the pump is all the same. So we'll just leave it as it is and run with it. We'll be fine. Okay, I got that clamp tightened up down there, so that hose is on. I also got the fluid filled back up here. You can see it down in there. So I think we're ready to go there. The next thing I need to tackle is this. I've got you saw that the battery box is modified, but I'm in the process of painting it right now, and so it takes a little while. I put some rust kill on it, and that's got to dry for 24 hours, so we're still in the process of that. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and polish this up and get some rust kill on this down in here and see what it does. And I'm going to use this little die grinder right here. I should be able to use this one-handed, so let's see what we do here. Oop, yep. Oh, check this out. It's the first time I've noticed this. There's a big old hole in there, so obviously something has hit that thing. Interesting. Alright, well, just keep going. Alright, well that'll probably do. I'm not gonna do the whole entire thing. I just want to get the worst of it there so it stops the rust. When I pull this thing apart this winter, or maybe next winter, or whenever, then we'll see about doing a little bit more. Okay, next item up is the wiring for the radiator. You see I got the rust kill sprayed on that. That's what that gloss is on it. It'll dry. I got to give that 24 hours to dry now, so I'll be able to primer it tomorrow. The wiring harness, the radiator, well, didn't come with a wiring harness, but I purchased a wiring harness for it, and it plugs into the fans down there. You can see these plugs right down here. Plugs into the fans down there and grounds up here on the radiator. So then the wiring wraps around and comes over to here, comes into here to the relays. Now I could have easily enough just cut this corner right here and plug the fan in right here, but they gave me like 6 feet of wire on that thing, so I wrapped it around the radiator just to use up all the wire. I mounted the relays over here. Oh, I should also mention that this whole wiring harness is all number 10 wire, 40 amp relays, 40 amp fuses in there. Well, it might be 30 amp fuses in there.
Fuses are powered directly from the alternator. This wire down here runs down and connects directly to the alternator down there. And so that was pretty easy to put in. Comes into the fuses, feeds the relays. The control wires are these wires over here, and as you can see, I have not hooked any of these up yet. I've got them coming up and running up here. Now the way that these things work is these gray wires, I think it's the gray wires, have to go to the sensor on the engine that turns the fans on when it gets hot enough, and the other two wires has to be hooked to positive 24 volt when the ignition is turned on. The only power that I have that's easily accessible out here is on the, and I don't want to use that connection because I don't want to overload the ampacity in the wire, though the relays, the coils on the relays aren't going to draw that much current. The other factor too is I want to be able to control the fans manually. I want to have the ability to turn them on at any time, override the sensor and turn it on, and I want to be able to also override the sensor and turn it off anytime. So I've decided I'm going to run these wires inside the car and put a toggle switch in there that allows me to do that, and then it'll be easy enough to pick up power from the fuse box in there when the ignition is on, and also I'll have power that's hot all the time in there as well. Now here's the sensor, so we've still got to get the signal from the sensor back into the passenger compartment. And now I know what you're gonna say on the sensor here. You're gonna say, Doug, this sensor needs to be in the path of the water flowing, and you don't have that. You've got some kind of conglomeration there that puts you up and out of the path. Well, yeah, I know that, and I'm not liking this at all. But I'm hoping that the residual heat of the engine will transfer up all of that brass and trigger that thing. If not, I still do have the temperature gauge, so the temperature gauge is right back down in here is where it connects, and it is in the flow of the water. And I thought about swapping these two around, but then I got thinking, well, I'd rather know what the temperature of the engine is, and then if I've got a toggle switch in there, I can flip it on if I need to. The problem is I only have a 1/8 fitting down here, so I can't screw this down into that. Now I could drill this out and rethread that, but to do that I've got to cut a lot of meat out of there, and all those shavings are going to fall right down inside the cooling system, and I just don't want to have to deal with that at this point. The other thing I thought of too is to take and TIG weld a bung on here and screw it into the radiator, but then again, voids the warranty, so can't do that either. This is what I chose to do. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, I've got this. I'll have the switch in there to do that. So I've got some wires to run in here, got some things to paint in here. I will go ahead and get all of that done and let you guys take a look at it. All right, little update here. Battery box and all the brackets and bolts and everything are ready to go. And we got this painted down inside of here. That came out pretty good. Found a can of paint that was close to the color of the car. Nah, it'll do. All right, so let's get this in here and I'll get back with you. All right, well, I went to poke this battery box down in here and got a little problem there. The left hand didn't quite know what the right hand was doing, and now I got this wire in the way. Great. So what I'm gonna have to do is move that wire out of the way. I think I can just take this wire here and move it down to that bolt down there, and then this will sneak in. There's enough room between the battery box and this fan where it can just, this one can just sneak in right there. So all right, I'll get that corrected and move on. All right, it's like ragu sauce. It's in there. Okay. All right. First thing that we're going to do is I want to make sure that my electrical system on these fans is working okay. We will touch this to the negative. Oh yeah. Ooh, they're getting with it. Man, I can feel the breeze off of that. Holy Hannah. All right. Well, I don't see smoke anywhere, so I think we're okay. Well, you got to the smoke anyway. Yeah, it looks like I swapped a little oil on the exhaust header. So it's probably gonna smoke for a little bit. Don't worry, nothing's on fire. I'm looking at it. Warm up, should be fine. You saw me reading, taking some temperature readings on here, and so what I was doing is, you know, I was concerned about this thing being up so high and not being in the flow of water here, that it wouldn't work. So I was taking temperature readings up here and down here and over here on this side and on the block, and I just kind of wanted to compare all that there to what the temperature gauge was reading. And what I found is that up here, just as I suspected, was running 5 to 10 degrees cooler than what this was down here. And what did surprise me though is that this whole entire side was running cooler than this side over here. So the fans did finally kick on, and the temperature gauge read about 215 degrees when it did. So the good news is that the temperature went down once the fans kicked on. They kicked on at 215 degrees, like I said, and they got clear down to 190 degrees before I shut it off. So that is good. I think this thing is going to cool just fine. Moving down the road, that tells me that this thing is probably going to get the engine cooled down too, to the point where the fans should actually either not kick on at all or will eventually kick off. So all of that is good news. Okay, well, let me get my temporary workbench here out of the way, and then I got to run up and get some fuel, and then I'm going to take it back out into the country like I did before and see how it does for temperature. So let me get all that done, and when I get out there a ways and get it warmed up, I'll let you see it again, and we'll go from there. Well, all right, guys, we're doing pretty good here. We're almost back out to where we were last time when it was getting hot, and we
we have not surpassed about what it is right there. So we're gonna be pulling off into that gravel lot here pretty soon. I got some company this time. Alright, well I can hear the fans running. Not gonna stay there. Somebody else is parked right there in that lot working on the rig, so I'm just gonna take back off and head home. Oh yeah, he moves out. So even after that little romp, same temp, but she's just hanging in right there. So I think we'll be all right. Well, all right, we got the radiator in there and got a successful test. It is staying nice and cold. Even running around town, it actually will come clear down to 180 degrees, so that's great. Out on the road, it still likes to run about 200 degrees, but as long as it's in that range, it'll be fine. Also got a couple other things done on it. Got the power steering hose changed. Battery box we got cleaned up, got a little paint on it, took care of some rust there. We did run into a couple other things there that we need to add to the whiteboard, but I'm actually giving up on the whiteboard. I'm going to go to a list on PowerPoint. It'll look better in the video. And we had a little incident here with the paint cans that I was using to paint that battery box. I had one that was empty and one that was completely plugged. There was no paint would come out of it. So I put both cans up here, and I always cut them open before I throw them away. Kind of dump any leftover paint out, let it dry. And so I set them here on the bench, and a couple days later I grabbed the paint cans and stuck it in there. And normally I cut it right at the top and relieve the pressure out of it. But for whatever reason, I completely spaced it on the can that was still half full, and I cut it right down the middle of the can. And rather than just releasing the pressure out of it, it just sprayed paint all over the place here. You can see all of this right around in here is paint splatter. Got on my toolbox,
all up and through here. The front of this thing was just covered with paint, all in through here. I have cleaned that off already. You can kind of still see it on the front of my box right there. Also, all over the floor down here is splatter from it. The worst part of it in here is, yep, I hit the whiteboard. So I'm sure I can't clean that off. Had a little incident there this go around, but no big deal. It'll take some time, but I can clean this up. All right, well, here's our new list format. I've added the stuff that we've already done and crossed it out. I've changed the engine work a little bit. Instead of saying more power, I'm just saying engine work. So I've got the high performance heads on here, the Holley EFI system on here. I also added higher compression pistons on here because I know I'm not going to be satisfied with it until I get the compression all the way up there to where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and just add this pistons on here as well. We've got the air conditioning on here. I also added the steering gearbox and pitman arm. The pitman arm has got some wear on it, and I can't find just the pitman arm. The gearbox is a little loose and leaking, so I found a combination of the two, rebuilt, and just went ahead and ordered those. So I need to get those on there as well, but they're very difficult to replace, so I'm going to wait until I pull the engine out on that. The other couple things that we need to add here are straighten the driver's side frame rail in the front and replace the lower radiator support. A little bit of damage up there, so I'm going to try to fix that. Okay, so that's our updated list. I will save this and we'll continue on. Okay, so what's next with the Coronet? Well, still got a couple of road trips coming up with it. I need to get it over to Tri-Cities, let the guys at work see it, let the guys from my Tuesday lunch see it, and then I got a couple other people that are around the area somewhere that I've known through work that also watch FABRATS and actually reached out to me when I won the car to wish me congratulations, and I told them I'd come see them. So I haven't done that yet either, but we'll get to it. So as always, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.